Hello and welcome to the upstreamlife.com. I'm your founder and editor, Vishal Krishna. I love talking business. Business is very important to inspire people, but business when it's sustainable, business when it understands nature, even better. I've got somebody who does that, and his name is Babu, and Babu is the founder of Steerworld.
That's right, Vishal.
And what are we going to talk about, Babu?
Talk about life.
We're going
Talk
to talk
about the
life,
business world.
Yes.
Talk about why it matters, why business should focus on building for tomorrow, and why we should care to think about longer term and just not today's
episodes. Yeah, that's true. You know why? Because circular economy, all of you must have read it that, hey, I want to stay sustainable. I want to help the earth. But this company, Steerworld, really thinks about sustainability and it's true fact, and they do it with science. And if you're in Bangalore, do visit them. Your factories are in Bangalore, aren't they?
And in Coimbatore, we
Okay.
run organizations across the globe, but then a lot of it happens here.
So check this out. Check the podcast out. Let me know. This is a true Make in India success. If you have questions, let me know. I'll get Babu to answer it. But meanwhile, enjoy the podcast. Leave a lot of comments, and we'll get Babu to answer them for you. All right. Hi,
Vishal.
Babu. How are you?
Very good, Vishal. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
It's
It's
good
not
to be
often that I can host a scientist who has gone into business and achieved many good things. 31 years of Steerworld. And that's what we're going to talk about today. In many ways, we're also going to talk about the future of manufacturing. And that's what interests me. A lot of companies have bandied words like Industry 4.0 and all of them technological changes. But what does Steerworld solve?
Right. So we are a manufacturing technology organization, and we are committed to improving processes. So the kind of materials we deal with are carbon molecules, and you know how important carbon is today in this day and age. Climate action, atmospheric carbon, fossil carbon. Everyone is talking about carbon here. And if you take polymers that we use, even in this particular space we are in, there's a lot of carbon molecules, macromolecules that form the materials that surround us right now. The foods we have, the medicines we take, all of them are carbon molecules. The body that we possess, carbon molecules. Life is carbon. And so when processing carbon macromolecules, the kind of process that is required, whether it's paper industry, plastics industry, pharmaceutical industry, food industry, they need process machinery or process manufacturing systems. And this is the field we are in. And we take traditional processing, batch processing, conventional processing, to very advanced processing. It's called flow processing. Just like the transition happened in automotive, Ford did this. Assembly line from a fixed one place manufacturing to a flow manufacturing, and you know how much it disrupted automotive. So to do that, you need one condition. You can't leave parts behind. Imagine you're building a car and you leave a carburetor around and things like that. It won't make sense. So in flow manufacturing with these molecules, you can't afford to leave these molecules behind. It would call fouling, stagnation, accumulation. It'll degrade, of course, these molecules. And therefore, you needed a very good vessel. Therefore, when the flow occurs, there's no accumulation, no stagnation. Everything moves like a good assembly line. And that's what we do. That's the technology we work on.
Okay. That's the technology. The end customer, you mentioned food, pharmaceutical.
Plastics, rubber.
Okay. And the end customers are humans like citizens like every one of us who will use these products. It's not typically industry, is it? Because when I look at Steerworld, it has food also. So how do you define vertical, horizontal, and Steerworld, just to make it simpler?
Good. So let us say there is a real crisis in the world, COVID, for one. And just before COVID, there was another viral thing called HIV, it caused AIDS. And imagine companies wanting to bring medicines out. While today, over the years, we have become a company capable of producing medicines. But 10 years ago, for instance, companies that wanted to produce HIV medication came to us for using our technology. And why? There is a very important functionalization of pharmaceutical ingredients, actives that's required. It's valid in food too. It's called bioavailability enhancement. So a drug we take orally, whether it will enter our bloodstream depends on many factors. And if those factors are not met, the drug needs to be injected in. So you know the cost, the difficulty of having a patient take, a medicine as a injection versus taking a oral pill. So for treating HIV, companies like Cipla, Aurobindo, etc. came to us for creating these manufacturing systems where bioavailability enhancement takes place. So the API becomes capable of permeating into the bloodstream. That's the kind of intervention we were doing earlier, 10, 12 years ago.
So they had the IP at that time, but they would ask you to build a machine and the process for them at that time, if I got that right.
So the IP is a very good word. So they had a program, I would imagine. So in generic medicines, the word IP may not be strictly.
So they had a process IP.
So
maybe.
they had, yes. So they had, to be very precise, the license to manufacture these drugs, and they needed to ensure that they had the know-how to then manufacture. And so we were able to provide know-how to manufacture.
So it started there.
Yes.
That was 10 years ago, but things have changed now.
Right.
You've developed on that knowledge further, haven't you?
That's right. So we realize the importance. So when you have breakthrough technology, then you can create products which are not existent right now. And as the needs of the world change, and we were just talking about it, that people have recognized that the current staple foods, the way the availability of food products is, it doesn't provide complete nutrition. So people want to work with millets as a grain, any kind of an ancient grain. People want super foods and so forth. But then if you think about it, why they weren't in the currency, why they were not part of the popular food program, there are reasons, and including protein-bearing lentils and seeds. These foods cause certain difficulties in digestion and certain other characteristics in terms of its availability and nutritional ability and so forth. So this needs very careful preparation. And that's another place where our intervention. So we as an organization moved from providing technology to realizing the need of the hour. So if we can solve micronutrient problems, if we can solve pollution problems, we can solve soil regeneration issues and so forth. So we could gradually start building these facilities, these as incubations, and now we are ready to launch them as startup organizations.
Interesting. So there are many IPs here then, right? What would be the industry that you'd want to go after?
So we have carefully divided our program into two, life sciences, and life sciences deal with accessible medication and essential nutrition. So these come under the life program. And then we have a materials program. And in the materials program, we have chosen, again, two paths. One is to ensure that pollution is prevented. And pollution can happen due to waste stream. And pollution can also happen due to improper usage. So we can solve these two issues in managing waste, plastic waste, agri-waste, and so forth. This is one program. We call it the Geomatter program. And the other program is to create alternates to single-use materials, including mulch film that's used in agri, farms and all that. Essentially, what is that program? That whatever single-use material the world needs, it should regenerate and nourish soil and not cause stress to the soil, toxicity to the soil. And this is the program we run.
It's interesting. So life sciences, there's agri. Do you do any traditional manufacturing firms? Do you support them? Like the large business houses that the conglomerates that are into multi-businesses. Plastics is a big thing too.
Right. Over the years, we've been working with all these global big names. So we work in Japan out of our own establishment, in the US, in China, and Europe. So yes, we work with very large names, the big global corporations, the multinationals, to provide them manufacturing systems and solutions.
Yes.
So this is one area of business we call advanced manufacturing. The world as we speak is recognized that we can't take energy for granted.
Yes.
And we have to run processes at its what's called enthalpy value. Enthalpy is the total energy that is required to do the conversion. And so our manufacturing program clearly addresses that. Are we using some processes today, as we see it, consumes 5 times, 20 times the required energy. And this is,
not done.
Cannot be sustained.
Yeah.
And therefore, if there are better ways of manufacturing, like what we have, instead of going from a certain type of batch manufacturing to flow and continuous manufacturing that reduces resource and energy consumption so dramatically, that's the way to go.
It's interesting. So let me bring in 6 aspects that you like, and you should comment on them. No surprise to you. It's on your website, so I'm picking up from there. So you've talked of microplastics, hidden hunger, micronutrient deficiencies, which you alluded to earlier, soil degradation, deforestation, and plastic waste. These are close to your heart, that the world needs to be sustainable, because you spoke about sustainability. So your company is trying to solve everything around these 6 pillars. Reiterating again, microplastics, hidden hunger, micronutrient deficiency, soil degradation, deforestation, plastic waste. Looks like a global problem that you want to take on. How? I mean, the business side is one. A lot of people may think that, hey, that looks like a foundations business, but this is a business opportunity for you. You want to explain?
Right. So, so clearly, when you add value, Vishal, to a person or a business, then they care. So, so currently, if you look at the core human needs, and the fact that the planet boundaries have to be respected, so you cannot put all these novel entities. Microplastics is one family of novel entities, but you can't put any kind of fertilizer, pesticide, any substance that should not be in an environment, whether it's water, air, or soil, shouldn't find itself there. And that is a clear understanding the world is building. We have chosen a very small set of that problem. So we know our place. It's not as though we've taken on this massive problem, let's clean up the world now. The novel entities, all kinds of organic material, inorganic material that has found itself. You take leaded gasoline, CFCs. There are huge problems in the world. After the industrialization started, we dumped all kinds of substances. We understand this one aspect very well. When a material becomes a substance, so substances enter the environment. The pesticide is a substance that enters the environment. Fertilizer it enters as a substance. It causes harm as a substance, and people understand this quite well. But if you put a plastic material into the environment, it slowly becomes a substance. As it disintegrates, it becomes a substance. And when it becomes a substance, that's when it starts interfering with life. And this people haven't understood it at all.
Yeah, that's the toxicity of the nature of plastic, right? So people talk soil degradation also with plastics also nowadays, and the nutrients that go in. How important is for people to understand those things? And you as a business person, when you go sell these type of ideas, I know a lot of people in the larger companies have this mandate to go green, be sustainable, and make sure that use less water, less of energy, make sure that the food we eat is good. But how real is that when you have conversations? Because I meet people who have worked at the pharmaceutical companies, who come and started up companies that are an antithesis of the old pharmaceutical industry. So I'm just wondering, how does this interplay of business happening? Just from a leadership point of view, I'm asking. There's this interplay of ideas in the world today, and how is that changing?
It's an important thought. The way I've dealt with it and way we continue to practice is, I think, on 2 different measures.
Yes,
One,
please.
we don't believe we are competing with any other player. In fact, I don't use the word competition at all. all of us, 8 billion of us, are trying to live a better life. All of us.
Absolutely. That's the end
So
goal. Yeah.
we don't need to compete with anyone. It's like you go and play, let the better person win, right? Or let the better person prevail in terms of practices. So you need to keep on figuring out who has the best practice. And if that practice is more efficient, more effective, then you adopt it, or let the other person thrive. They can practice, whether it's a business or an individual. So that's one approach we have followed, that around the world, we believe we are another player and we need to facilitate. In fact, we work with other players who may be in the same business. We even facilitate them to do better. So one is that measure. And the other, you talked about selling. And early on, we realized that it's like a pet or even a child. You really have to adopt a child. You adopt a pet. You don't have to sell. It's the question of money doesn't enter the picture. Similarly, technology has to be adopted. You can't go and sell a technology.
Yeah.
Somebody has to feel the need for technology. Otherwise, why would they adopt?
Yeah.
It's like adopting a pet or a child. There has to be a real need for this. So we went through this process. In fact, some of the big breakthrough in technology we did during the global economic downturn. And we found that, therefore, at that time, people were not mindful of adopting technologies as businesses. And even today, I'm part of the United Nations Global Innovation Hub, and realizes whether it's governments or very large corporations, they have to do what is credible to their shareholder. So they were limited. Nothing wrong with that. So they are answerable. They have to be credible. So their ability to do initiatives will be limited. So if you want true breakthrough, you have to care, share, and dare. And if you have to do that, then it's a different ball game. And that is why we started application labs. So we need to do this ourselves. We have breakthrough technology. You can get it adopted. We still want to get it adopted. But then if you can apply it yourself, you can convert waste plastics into hardwood. If you can get these grains into some kind of a form that is really nutritive, those are the things that if you can't get somebody else to adopt, then you do it.
This application lab is your in-house accelerator of sorts for your ideas that emerge out of your company.
That is so. That is so, Vishal. So with the right scientists, the right people who understand pharmaceuticals and medicines. You mentioned that pharmaceuticals are going from fixing a problem, as in therapy, to prevention.
Correct.
And in India, especially, personalized medicine is how we knew medicine. Ayurveda, if you think about the difference, is not about an average. It's not statistical. So how do you develop a medicine in Western or allopathic medicine? You come up with an ingredient. It's either a substance or a compound. It's an active ingredient. You make sure that it's effective clinically. And it's got clinical significance. Let's say 90% of the case it's effective. And few cases it has terrible side effects. But it's still approved. So, but maybe you had the one who has the side effect, but how do I know?
Yeah.
So, and in 90%, it was statistically significant. That's not how Ayurveda worked. The physician has a personal relationship with you. They're going to monitor you. They're going to tell you what diet to take. They're going to tell you how your lifestyle has to change.
That's why they're called Vaidyas.
Yeah.
They understood you. Vaidya is also to teach and to enable you to understand your life better.
So if you merge these two schools, of course you need ingredients that are significant, but you need care.
Yeah, it's
right?
care. It's the real meaning of care.
And if you combine this, then you get more effective therapy, right? So
have you dabbled with Ayurveda at all?
So see, basically Ayurveda remains clinically significant. Why? And even in Western medicine or allopathy, you start realizing the power of combinations, especially in viral medicine. Most viral therapy are combination drugs. So what Ayurveda figured is naturally occurring compounds which occur in combination work pretty significantly. But unless it's personalized, so the problem with that approach would be it's even more specific. So if one molecule, let's say it's called paracetamol, which is also known as acetaminophen or APAP, is effective 95% of the time, In Ayurveda, it's effectively only 5% for select group of people. So to identify that even becomes difficult. So if it's one ingredient, you can either do a statistical distribution, but if it's a combination, it works only in even a select few. So how do you establish clinical significance?
This is brilliant, and because it's personalized nature, your company maybe has the chops to, because of the math and the data, you can now personalize medicine in many ways and see which population set.
Absolutely. That's why we
works on,
think food and medicine are one and the same.
right?
We don't think of it as separate. Because
Right?
if you
Because
understand the
Ayurveda is
principles of
natural
Ayurveda,
also,
right,
so certain natural characteristics work on only a particular set of people.
that's right.
So it's a harder job than just
Absolutely.
go say pop a pill and you'll be fine.
Our biome, meaning what resides in us, inside our guts, and our genome, which is our genes, define what foods we should have. And if you have the wrong foods, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to be in distress.
Yes, I agree with you. And that's a wonderful thought. I'll come back to it. I just want to go to your focus areas quickly. Polymers, you blend natural and plastic. So you're in polymers, you're in powder coat. Obviously, we talked pharmaceuticals. There are biopolymers. And obviously, we talked food. You're also into construction. There's a lot of companies, verticals, right? And it's an opportunity because it's all materials for you. And how these materials can be used in the end. You want to talk about a few examples of where I saw a couple of products of yours where you blended PP with bagasse. That's interesting. So that way they don't affect the Earth's, natural process or sustainability. Correct?
True.
So there's 6 or 7 industries here that we have already spoken about. Food, pharmaceutical, we've covered in detail. But does plastics play a major role in your business as well, right? I mean, reusable. Is that all possible today? Some people say convert plastic to roads or something. But they say that it's not sustainable. So, but in your mind, you're always looking at the Earth's sustainable process.
Well,
so
there are
all these
several
examples you want to
thoughts.
explain to me,
Absolutely.
because when people think polymers, they say, hey, it's still, but plastic has been the best invention that man's made for the industrial scale that we have distributed food and storage, right?
Right.
So you want to talk about these industries that you saw?
Well, it's such a complex and beautiful matter. It's like a flower, It's beautiful because it's complex too. So, I want to start with certain things that developed in the world which separated natural from artificial. And there was an attempt, this is 2,500 years ago in Greece, to understand what process is natural, what process is supernatural, and what process is in the control of a man. And they didn't call it manual, they just called it artificial.
That's funny.
So
Well said.
the word art is something that humans influence. That's art. So it's artificial. That's one I want to leave with you and the people who are listening. That ultimately, if you think man is part of nature, then whatever we do is like a bee. If a bee does something, builds a hive, makes honey, and that's natural. If man, being a living thing, does something, how can it be artificial? That's also natural because man is also natural. Because there's no carbon that we are making from scratch.
Yeah.
The carbon is built in the stars. And whether it's fossil carbon or atmospheric carbon, carbon is carbon. It doesn't change. Now, something does matter because carbon in the atmosphere also has a radioactive element, C14, which can be dated or found. And therefore, whether a substance is with atmospheric carbon or fossil carbon because you can figure out how much C14 it has. And today, in the present day, we cannot afford to put any more fossil carbon in the form of carbon dioxide or methane into the air. Absolutely. The greenhouse effect would cause catastrophic change. Has things happened? Yes. Meteorite strikes, terrestrial movement, continental drift. But knowingly, things happen. But knowingly, would we go to a near extinction even? Knowingly.
That would be stupid. Yeah, correct. Absolutely.
So things happen, true. But we can't do it knowingly. And we can see the writing on the wall. If we continue to take carbon out of the ground, and make carbon dioxide and methane, put it in the air, it is going to cause irretrievable
Damage.
yes. So we need to pay heed, and we're doing it at a rate. So changes have happened. Even life has caused change. When life moved from sea to land, there was change, and lots of extinction happened. Similarly, when life went from anaerobic to aerobic, oxygen came into the environment, there was massive change. But the scale at which even those happened are actually much longer than the change at which we are doing.
So we're
as
rapidly
humanity.
damaging itself.
Rapidly changing. Is it damaging? Is it what, has to be measured by the individual? Some people like, current candidate in the US presidential race might think it's not damaging, it's beneficial for business. But so clearly, it is going to make changes, and not all of humanity can deal with this. And that's going to cause a lot of stress, distress, and difficulties. And are we prepared to do this? And that's where nutrition comes in. If you want resilience, we need to be able to use cognition or reasoning, not just emotion. Emotion is going to put us into a competitive, territorial protection kind of a mood, right? So we can't be collaborative, we can't be calm, composed, deal with problems. And nutrition plays a very important role in reasoning. And it's very well documented that if a mother who's anemic gives birth to a child, it causes cognitive impairment. But going back to the subject you were asking me, why have we chosen
Polymers,
all these different fields, whether it's polymers, microplastics, and so forth? The thread is the same. We deal with carbon molecules. We're completely agnostic to the molecule, but we understand the function, and they follow a certain core need. And that is why we can use our engine, what we call intelligent compounding.
Okay.
It's like if you had a search engine, then you can do many things. Google does many things.
Absolutely.
So if you had a good software, you're pretty agnostic whether you enter banking, whether you enter enterprise management, you do, for something like the air travel industry. So once you have an engine, you know the functions, then you know what all industries you can make the best difference for.
Okay, I think we've got a lot of high-level stuff and brought in the company, but I just really want to talk about specifics now, very, very, very specific. I want to call it Steerworld in 12 slides or whatever. The first one is inspiration from earthworms, and you make twin screw extrusions. Why inspiration from earthworms, and what are these twin screw extrusions? I know they're machines, but for our audience.
Right. So what the earthworms do is really ensure that the soil can be healthy. And the inspiration there is the following, that when material goes through the earthworm, earthworm cannot retain them. It has to get rid of or, get the organic matter through itself. And after it's transformed, it comes out and then gets deposited on the soil. So this process of ensuring material transformation occurs and positively everything comes out is what we signify as a self-cleaning process, which is capable of transformation and therefore pushes everything out. Extrusion is a process of pushing everything out.
Correct.
And that was why we said it's really inspired by seeing how earthworm. And the fact that soil,
and they keep it clean, right?
Yes,
yeah,
they keep
very
it
important for the nutrition of the soil. The nutrients come from earthworms, no?
The nutrients, so the soil's nutrition value for growing plants is a result of earthworm activity. So if there's organic matter, the soil is rich in organic matter, is not the nutrient-rich soil for growing plants, because the nitrogen in the soil now diminishes. So after the earthworm activity, the soil is capable of fixing nitrogen.
Got it. I like your imagination. The next one, you talk about spiral geometrics, inspired by DNA, I think, right? What are these spiral geometrics? These are also machines that shape things in a particular matter, or it's just beyond that?
So actually, there were two things that the DNA it encodes information, and the fact that the arrangement matters a lot. So we have a way of designing the processing the extrusion equipment. As material transforms and moves, the way we stack them up, the way we encode that information in a spiral matters a lot, because we are transporting materials along a spiral, and the way encode that information matters a lot.
For the structural integrity of the product?
For the structural characteristics of the product.
Okay.
One of them may be integrity. For instance, if you want to retain a certain type of a morphology, which is the word integrity, then all those arrangements matter.
And where do these spiral geometrics go? Which industry do you serve?
All of the extrusion equipment or the compounding machinery we build have the spiral geometry built in. Every one of them.
So it goes into pharma, food, everything?
Food, yeah, every
construction
industry,
too.
Yeah.
Okay. You're inspired by wood, and why? You have something called lumber. What is that?
So if you look at materials, metals, stone. So if you look at all the materials that we use, textiles, papers, of course, derived from cellulose, which is in the wood. The specific strength and specific stiffness. So these are two characteristics that define any kind of material that we need to really utilize around us. What does that mean? That for its weight, specific strength and specific stiffness means for its weight, how strong and how stiff the material is. Wood actually competes with steel in that category.
Okay.
And because its density is so low, density is 1/20th of steel.
Okay. Not that it matters to me, but I don't understand it. But why does it matter? Tell me. I want to know now.
So we are trying to save the world today, right? So there is a lot of emphasis on ensuring that our construction becomes lighter, lighter on energy. So when we build, we want to make things not heavy, not heavy on heavy on energy, heavy on.
Same thing. Going back to your core values.
And nature built this amazing material called wood. It's a composite. It's reinforced. It's porous. Steel reinforced concrete is a very good equivalent that we created, which is used in building. But then, if we want to start working on sustainability, then we needed a material which will truly represent wood, and that was possible with a kind of intelligent compounding. That
okay, got it. And bioassimilative packaging. Why are you into bioassimilative protective packaging?
So the aspect of single-use packaging for certain requirements, whether it's for protection of, our bodies, for instance. We go to a hospital, from hygiene point of view, there has to be a wrap. So the use of single-use material is not easy to get rid of. We can think of utensils, many things that can be used by the same individual repeatedly. There are many applications that use single-use packaging. And beyond that, we need soil protection, mulch film, and so forth. So imagine a material that is used for these kinds of purposes. When it enters into the environment, a soil environment, it can nourish the environment. So every molecule, every material becomes a molecule or a substance. And in that process, for sure that those substances are like organic matter. It will nourish the soil. So it becomes important to look at it not as a biodegrading material. Degrade would be to...
Would it be something that farmers could use also?
Absolutely.
Because I heard packaging material can be very expensive at times.
Packaging, if not used carefully, will cause losses. So it can be expensive in many ways. Just the materials, cost some money. In fact, pharmaceuticals, a lot of the cost is in packaging. Not all of it just in making the tablets or the capsules. So you're right, packaging is expensive, and one needs to be mindful of that, especially in some uses where it's interacts or comes to the environment. like for instance, garbage bags, or like you said, hospital wraps, or mulch films in managing agriculture. So these are places where one would need bioassimilative or biophilic materials. So over the last 200 plus years, we had been focusing on durable materials, functionally durable, long lasting. But then when it's left in an environment like soil, then it degrades rather than enriches.
Yeah.
So we need to understand
Figure that
this.
out. Okay. And at scale, this can be affordable by many things.
So that is the job of a technologist. So what does technology do? Whether it's to bring a mainframe into a personal computer, into a phone, or whatever, it basically makes it possible to ensure everyone can afford it. So that's why we take the role of technology very seriously, because that's what builds scale.
Okay.
And that's the core of what Steer does as a
Got
manufacturer.
it. You've gotten to rice. You've called it biomimetic flat rice. And again, going deeper into this is to ensure that this is rice that keeps the best of the nutrients, but also easily digestible, unlike our ancestral grains, which are not. Right? What is your thought process on the rice?
So let me explain. There are two
Yeah,
aspects.
please,
You
please.
mentioned one, Vishal, already, which is the aspect of nutrition, which comes out of ability to assimilate or have enough bioavailability. So nutrition has to get into our bloodstream. That's one which you mentioned. But where we came from is, if you take what's happening in this society of ours, the Western society had pasta. And pasta has so many different spaghetti, it's linguine, it's penne, whatnot.
But the base is wheat.
Yeah, base is wheat.
Grain, yes.
And is always supplemented with a lot of, like tomatoes, fresh vegetables, and meat. So the pasta itself, the carb in the pasta, is one part of the meal. And there's a lot of others that make up the meal. If you take noodles, which is the Eastern version of ready-to-eat kind of a thing, again, whatever I mentioned about pasta holds good. The carb is only a small part of the meal. There is a lot of broth, which is rich, and so forth. The children of India is exposed to pasta and noodle just as carbs.
Yeah, maida. It's maida.
And so we are looking at a massive crisis.
That's so scary.
So, we need to replace with a form that we understand. And, from the time of Mahabharata, you have stories of Krishna receiving beautiful roasted, flat rice, which his friend brought. So we know the power of certain things like poha, like, the puffed rice or bale and so forth. So if you can provide rice, which is balanced, arsenic-free, has the right essential amino acid profile, and so forth, and that would mean, very important for the future of our society, especially which is vegetarian.
Yeah, mostly.
Has certain restrictions
Yes.
in the diet and so forth. And it turns out there is something called the forbidden rice, which is really a good example. It's so balanced. So, nature tries to create examples, but then it's very expensive. We can't afford it. So if you can create something
affordable.
as
Are you marketing this already? Or is it still experiments?
So Steer as an organization post-COVID has realized the needs to bring products to market rather than as technology provider. Like I said, it's not enough to create something and be an inventor, but an innovator. And to be an innovator, you need not just to care, but also has to dare. And the daring part is what most companies do, the startups. They dare to be the first mover, bring some powerful innovations to the market. So over the last 30 years, we built this powerful technologies. And while built application lab, we were wondering whether we license this out, whether we help larger corporations to bring them to market and so forth. But the decision now, I'm really happy about, that we are bringing these products as we speak. So I'm speaking to Vishal, as this particular decision got made, that these kinds of things is not technology being offered, but products being offered.
This is fantastic because the next set of slides is about, I mean, this is logically coming to me because rice, the agriculture needs domes. You're building geodesic homes too. What are they?
So,
Are you building them yet, or it's just again at the application lab stage, looking at
so
material?
all of these are models that have been built and shown to work. And so the part of the ability to run this as a
Startup, separate
startup
company, yeah.
is the process. So we do these kinds of different programs, and to pick the opportunity, for instance, greenhouses, the design of the greenhouse. So the dome and to build an artificial forest is the best way to think of a greenhouse, is where we are going.
Yeah, you're
And
building that.
yes,
There's also hydrogels, which is part of that.
as
You
a
know,
soil
yeah.
and also for personal hygiene and so forth. So we build all of these difficult materials which have currently been a problem in the world. And hydrogels are used in feminine hygiene and personal hygiene products, and they're very hard to dispose. So we need better materials for that. And hydrogels are essential for soil regeneration because they retain moisture in the soil. So that makes a lot of
It's
sense.
interesting. There's also effervescent calcium that you want to get into, which is the superfoods that you're talking about. Why effervescent calcium? Again, under lab stage, or still thinking through where it's going to go.
So iron, calcium, all the minerals, they have a very important, like a connection for me personally too. That knowing that, like for instance, a lot of the fracture that happens in elderly is because of osteoporosis, and that's due to calcium deficiency.
Absolutely.
And people can't digest milk, so stop having milk,
Yeah.
and they don't get enough calcium. So what is the best replacement for milk? Is a drink that is very bioavailable calcium. It doesn't cause stone or other, calcium. Wrong calcium can cause both, problems with stones as well as, circulation problems. So if you need bioavailable calcium and, that is essential nutrition, that's the kind of program that we care about. Like I said, Vishal, all of these were built as prototypes, and we did want to take it through current players into the market.
Got it.
But the decision now is we take these products into market either as private label or as our products.
Fantastic. You're positioned for both. So there's also something called acro alloy that you do. It's interesting. While I let you talk about acro alloy, I want you to think of these things too. Your entire company is built around the circular economy that people are talking about, right? There is also this fact of, you want to talk about efficiency, but efficiency by using less amount of energy. It's interesting. Really interesting.
So the acryloi is like if you're building, let us say, a company that is in information technology, if you imagine. So our focus is materials technology, but let's say you built a technology to deal with information. The first thing is to build a phone. And to build a phone, you need a lot of different things, including, let's say, a Gorilla Glass, a silicon chip. So for the kind of work we did, we built that vertically integrated organization. The acryloi is a kind of steel that India had the heritage for. It used to be called Uruku, oud steel. It was an amazing tool steel from which even the Damascus saber was made. Over the last 500 years, we lost that arts, the ability to make that, the heritage, and Steer kind of reinvented it. And we now make the best tool steel in the world. And why do we need these amazing tool steels? Because, to make waste plastics into wood-like material, we process a lot of corrosive, abrasive content. We don't mind if sand is in the material. So, current process machinery will abrade in no time if sand was present. So it has to be washed off and cleaned, which is a lot of resource wastage and water. So if you can accept sand in, and if you can use corrosive materials in, of course, we render it sterile and safe at the end of the process. You need extremely good steel, and we make them.
You make them, is it?
Acrylose them.
Yeah, so I mean, 31 years, you're the best kept secret in Bangalore in many ways. In a sense, you're looking at startups in many of these micro companies coming out of Steerworld, and and one of them is called Phytons, right? One of your startups. So, how many such startups do you have?
Well, like I said, it's divided into two categories: life sciences and material sciences. And Steer Life is a startup, and the material sciences have two startups: Geomatter and Phytons. That's it.
That's
Three of them
startups. Very nice.
dealing with this whole thing.
Would they be subsidiaries of Steerworld, or would you want
Yes.
to hive them off?
Not all of them are 100% subsidiary. Phytons is a JV. And Vishal, I have not looked at it as a secret. You know, we're very well known to the stakeholder that
To
matters.
the manufacturing world, yes, and the
And
pharmaceutical world.
Some, you know, and slowly. So we care a little bit about who should care. And so we are very well known to the people or the organizations who need to care. But currently, as a product company, we have a much larger stakeholder population, and that is the opportunity why we need to talk to you or have the world know about us. So by choice, you know, we had to build a platform, we had to build a product, we had to test them, we had to qualify them, we had to certify them. So there's a lot of process. And in fact, any product, it has to be, we talked about Ayurveda, personalizing, individualizing. You know, it solves a problem. Does it create another problem? We got to be very, very careful about doing these things. First, do no harm.
Yeah.
So we are fairly clear. It is not to, you know, create this huge buzz and then, you know, fail to deliver. So clearly we are in a long haul journey.
Got it. You're built for
a
a long
marathon.
one. Yeah, got it. A couple of quick things. The world has changed 31 years. Manufacturing processes have changed. There's something called industrial AI. They call it industrial 4.0 also. Steering through these trends, you know, starting off from that early age, 1994, you're a very young man. You what, 20, all of 25 when you started this company? How old were you?
Yeah, 25.
25, right? And obviously very little capital. How did you go through these trends and grow the company? And not get carried away. It'd been easy to see money and say, oh, I'll be a vendor for this five large companies and just remain there. But you kept innovating. The point you're trying to tell everybody is that you're in a process where today you're an innovation company, or you've got these application labs that can make money for not just you, but also give back to society in many ways. How did you prepare for those things?
No, the opportunity to do good and be a lifelong learner. You know, it's not about earning, but learning. You know, I don't know.
Correct. Remove the L from the word, and then it's not earning, but it's learning, right?
But then, you know, how does it become not a vicious cycle of alienation, isolation? You know,
I got what you're saying.
Versus a virtuous cycle
Yes.
of collaboration, connections, you know, the way to actually expand. And that, I think, is so important to this program, that, you know, we want to make a difference and make that difference through, of course, the work we do. And we're in a good place, meaning certain specific capabilities that has to be harnessed. So it's more like, you know, how to put it, when you know you're privileged, and that gives a sense of responsibility to you, that you know that, and you want to make best use of that position to serve the world. You know, a lot of people have life, work, and then service, you know, all different compartmentalized. I will even go do voluntary service for a while and then come back. You know, I don't see that separation of life, work, service, different compartments. It's one and the same.
So you kept learning. So you're a lifelong learner. That's how you went from being...
And lifelong service.
So you started off as a... I mean, most of them would be vendors, right? Would you have started off as a vendor, as an OEM right from the beginning, that you picked one product and said, I'll do it so well that others buy this?
Yeah. So in fact, the point you're making, Vishal, that when we started working on our ISO certification, we had a choice to make whether we would have the ISO 9001 or at that time 9002. So if you're a design and manufacturing company, you would do a 9001. If you're a manufacturer or a vendor, you would do 9002. We picked 9001. So we never thought of ourselves as somebody who wouldn't design and who wouldn't create right from the day of inception. And therefore, we never undertook to just re-engineer or copy something. That you needed to understand the principles of why a part that we're doing does the function it does. So we were always looking at it not as a supplier or a vendor, but as a provider of a solution or service right from the day one. And that continued. So the way we would look at, therefore, how it impacted the customer.
And you built original products thereon.
Yeah.
And that's how your clientele grew. How many customers do you serve, if I may ask?
So around the world, we have roughly 5,000 business clients currently. And
with manufacturing only in India or across the world?
Across the world. So we are a global organization. I moved to Japan to start our flagship in various countries.
Do you speak Japanese when you moved there? Did you know the
I learned to read, write hiragana, katakana, and that was 2007 to 10. And even now, I can read hiragana in a train station, like the Shinkansen, Nozomi. I can write it even now.
So you learned the kanji also, the calligraphy?
No, kanji is really hard. It takes a lot of. I would know a few symbols, but no, there are about 2,000 plus kanji with multiple interpretations.
So that's amazing. So you spend your ability to pick up these things, and you're saying building a company takes time. You need to have a vision, and you've stuck true to the vision. I mean, you started off working in space technology in the US after your PhD, moved here thinking you'll work, but you started off. Was that just naturally happened, or you just came and said, "I'm going to set up things"?
I was open-minded about starting the own organization. In fact, I had a name for it even.
Yeah, Steerworld. Yeah, Steer. At the time, it's Steer.
Right. And but I was open to work in space. So clearly, I couldn't have at that time started up as a space-oriented organization. Today, there is opportunity to do that. So basically, the process of how a seed level thing happens. How can you start small and then mature it is something that was essential for this process to happen. And I would love to spend another day, another time discussing this particular aspect of entrepreneurship. What is being an entrepreneur? Today in the startup ecosystem, there are entrepreneurs and there are innovators. And there are true capitalists, people who want...
I see you as a blend of all of these. Thinker, entrepreneur, and innovator, of course. How do you manage this? I mean, it must come naturally. Is it, again, lifelong learning, as you said?
So I think my father was an inspiration, watching him being a technocrat.
Because he was a creator, wasn't he? Not creator from the media world, kind of the ones that you see on Instagram, but true creators, woodwork, craft work, steel.
So deeply caring. And I think one thing that really made me understand life is how involved he is with the organization, the institution that he's part of, ensuring, the people who work there can thrive and flourish. And so clearly a lot of how I look at life is, by watching people. I watch people as in, I watch my children grow, so I really watch. So I really know that there are essential, I watch you.
Thank you.
Vishal, now.
Thank you. Being a person who's going to be nosy and question you.
Building something from scratch now.
No, thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, this is interesting. A couple of things I want to talk about. Fractional geometry, kinematics. They're very close to you. Why?
Well, it looks like a lot of what I've been doing is somehow the roots were there, the heritage was there. When I say who I am, in my family, I'm supposed to say I come from this 5 rishis.
Yeah, the school of thought.
School of thought was always there. Apastamba Sutra is one I'm supposed to have followed for 2,500 years. So obviously there's something in there in all of us. It's not just me. Lot of us, we have the genetic makeup to do what we do. And we come from the same mother, from So clearly there's a lot that I think the question that you had was kinematics and geometry. Um, that what I would say why I have a talent for it. Your question is again?
Again, why, how did you get inspired by doing all this kinematics and fractional geometry?
So I have read this book by um, a book called Outliers, Malcolm
Yeah.
Gladwell. That it's not someone is uniquely talented or born talent, but then they cultivate it. Even a basketballer or a ice hockey player. It's the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I have put, I think when I counted last 60,000 hours in this field.
I could say that you just paid me a compliment by saying you observe me. And it's true. I agree with what you just said because I must have interviewed about 20,000 people, and it is the number of hours. Actually, it is true, isn't it? Does that make is it really true?
Yes.
Proven by data?
Proven by data. Proven by data.
Or is it familiarity? I just want to know.
No,
it's not
deliberate.
familiarity, is it?
No, it's not. It's deliberate. So I can see a driver who has driven maybe 60,000 hours, like the amount of time I spent doing kinematics, but it was not deliberately learning something. So when I drive my own car. It's an electric car. I use the metro otherwise. Actually, every time I'm on the road, I'm eliminating risk. So I'm always evaluating, how people are. I mean, I'm a kinematician, so I have to see how things are moving and what is the path that I should take to ease the traffic flow rather than curtail traffic flow. This is my calculation, always going. And I'm constantly learning that some things I should do. I should do different lanes to alter and contribute to the ease of traffic flow. And I'm constantly learning. So I'm a deliberate learner while even driving. So if during those 20,000 interviews that you did, you paid real attention and you adjusted, you learned something, which you are doing. I can tell you. I can see
Thank
that.
you.
I can watch you do that. So clearly you are not following just a fixed pattern. Like this driver, he knows to drive and that's all he does all lifelong.
You just summed up my marketing. Thank you for that. But it's interesting. I really want to spend more time with you. Babu, what inspired me today is you've summed up so many things so beautifully, science, technology, and also business and life in particular. What I liked about you is you alluded to your roots in a sense. You talked about the learning from the Mahabharata, the learning from the ancestors. I had read somewhere that our DNA comes from obviously from our ancestors, right? We could be, our mind is a makeup of those millions of ancestors that we have. And how you use the best of them makes you what you are. And therefore, you're right. You talked about kinematics, fractional geometry coming naturally to you. It could be ancestral. But what inspires you today? What are you reading? Who inspires you? Or what are you reading? Or do you play sports? You'd earlier told me in an earlier conversation a few weeks ago that you were a volleyball player. So what keeps you going?
Right. So even just starting at that volleyball, my position was center. I would love to set up people to score. The spikers. Retrieve a very difficult ball and make sure that it stays in play and so forth. So clearly, what inspires me is to make good out of any situation, no matter how big it is, seems like a crisis looming, that I could salvage that, I could quickly make sense of that situation. And that on a daily basis is how I look at it. I'm reading, because we're running so many startups, Peter Thiel's
The 0 to 1.
I think one of my favorite books is called Centerless Corporation, which is kind of like the reason why I reinvented myself as a chief knowledge officer. So when I moved from being the CEO and we professionalized the organization, so the role I chose for myself is that. So yes, books, whether it's spiritual books or religious books, they believe that knowledge is kind of frozen in time, as opposed to the books that are able to make you inquire, they make you learn and experience, are definitely also necessary. maybe human society benefits from all kinds of books. And I think you're asking me the right thing. Books or the inspiration or writing. It
Yeah.
need not be in a written form, but people's thoughts. And it's not individual. We are building or being part of an institution, being part of a collaborative effort. And so the more you work with like-minded people who care.
Yeah, it matters. It's very heartwarming because we're living in an atomized world where everyone's broken into their elements single, and there's a loss of collaboration, there's a loss of care and nurturing. I'm glad Steerworld has built that. And you are the chief knowledge officer there. Who better than somebody to pass on that knowledge to coming
I'm
generations
just finding
of people?
out another person to take that role. So
Fantastic. So you're going to be, what are you going to do after that?
I'm going to play the role of the managing director as well as I can before I retire. My goal is to become a physicist next. So I believe we have a good understanding for the universe and who we are, but then I see the gaps, and I do want to really put a lot of work in core science, and as soon as possible.
No, all the best to you. And I'm going to be in touch. I'm going to be in conversation with you many more times in the future. So thanks so much, Babu. All the best to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vishal.